as the number 1 seed, Dak Prescott lost his first playoff game at home, which, and again, I said after the game, I thought Dak played well enough to win the game, but it reopened that door, swung it wide open for the Cowboy owner to say, I told you so, we would have gone farther with Tony Romo. And he will now go back to a Tony Romo that, as you always say, he loves like a son, Tony Romo Jones. And this is the guy that Jerry Jones bet the ranch on 3 years ago, and he wants to prove that he can win this Super Bowl with Tony Romo. Again, trust me, I'm sold on Dak. I would have traded Romo at the trade deadline, which is last November 1st. Yes, or I would have just done it. I would have auctioned him off to the highest bidder at that point. But that didn't happen because Jerry wants to win it with Tony Romo. So when Jerry talked yesterday about we just need to cool it, if he really wanted to trade Tony Romo, trust me on this, he would be stoking the fires. He'd be grabbing reporters, pulling them over, saying, let's talk about Tony Romo, because he'd be advertising Tony and that little sizzle reel that he had against Philly in that last regular season game. Nope, they're going to cool it. A year ago, the big push was to find the quarterback of the future and a quality backup quarterback. And now, even though Kellen Moore, free agent, Mark Sanchez, free agent, I wouldn't expect either one of them back. Is this a priority to find another? No, I don't think it's a priority. He says, nah, we're not really in that market right now, because he has his quarterback of the future and his backup quarterback named Dak Prescott, who makes next to nothing as a late 4th-round pick, right? Yep. So you can easily fit him under the salary cap, as Coach Mangini always tells us. It would actually serve them better to keep Tony Romo under the cap next year. It would be more physically responsible. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Jerry was asked, do you have the backup on your roster? And he said, well, we could have, but that's not a given yet. And my translation of that statement was, he does have his backup quarterback on the roster, but he doesn't want to admit that publicly, because he doesn't want Dak to know that through the offseason, because it would really upset Dak. It might even alienate Dak Prescott, and he doesn't want to do it yet until they get to training camp, and all of a sudden Dak opens his eyes and sees the writing on the locker room wall. Wait a second. He's getting more snaps than I am in training camp and in the preseason games. I'm now back to being what I was supposed to be, the backup quarterback.
Skip, you're very familiar with Dallas. You spent a lot of years there. Where is this French-speaking population in Dallas that Jerry Jones is speaking of, this we? Ain't no we need to cool it. You need to cool it. It was you that said, we need to see Tony Romo throw the ball at practice. It was you that said the plays that Aaron Rodgers were making, those are Tony Romo type plays.
He did?
He said that. It was also... My real regret would be if we do not win a championship in the Tony Romo era as a Dallas Cowboy. He said that. That was not we. It was him. What did he say on Monday, Skip? Jason Garrett said it's going to be an organizational decision.
No.
Jerry Jones says the buck stops with me.
He did.
I'm going to make that decision. So where is this we that we're speaking of?
No, he did. He said only one makes that decision.
Exactly. So it's really not a we, it's an I. This doesn't change the fact, Skip, that I believe Tony Romo will be traded away. Because here's the thing. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'm going to look at Tony Romo as a coffee table. The Cowboys have a coffee table. I'm in the market for a coffee table, Joy. Now, this coffee table has some scratches. It's been broken up a few times, and there might be a time that I might have to stick a couple of phone books up in there to hold it up. Now, I know this going into it. Now, I know this owner, he loves this coffee table.
He does.
Although it's been battered and bruised, he got a lot of scratches and scrapes on it.
To him, it's an antique headed for Canton, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Because he's afraid that if somebody gets this coffee table and shine it up, make it look real nice and neat,
that is true.
Somebody can get more benefit out of it than what I did. So he's like, now I need to try to either I'm going to keep them, or they're going to have to make me an offer I just can't refuse to let this coffee table go. And that's what he's trying to do, Skip. Look, I know what Tony Romo is. He's about to be a 37-year-old, badly damaged, beaten down quarterback. You don't get healthier as you get older. Now, we look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's had one injury. He had an ACL injury. He hadn't had 3 collarbone surgeries. He hadn't had 2 back surgeries. That's what Tony Romo has gone through, let's just say, in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So we know who and what he is. Jerry, you need to cool it. It's you that's trying to hype Tony Romo. We know what Tony Romo is. We also know what he isn't. You believe, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. What does Jerry Jones believe? Jerry Jones believes that I can win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo. I also believe, and you said this, Skip, and I said this earlier, I'm not saying that Jerry wants to lose, but he would feel a lot better winning if Tony Romo was his quarterback.
You would.
And the mere fact that Dak, even though Dak threw for 300 yards, and I'm not so sure that if he hadn't played Aaron Rodgers playing that historically great that day, that Dak doesn't win that game. I'm not so sure that any other quarterback other than Aaron Rodgers
I'll buy that.
And Matt Ryan in the NFC that day, Dak Prescott would have won that game.
He would have.
But because of that was Aaron Rodgers, he didn't win. But Jerry thinks somehow that Tony Romo would have outgunned Aaron Rodgers.
He does.
He doesn't look at that his defense gave up 21 points in the blink of an eye. But he doesn't look at it like that. It's all Dak's fault. Now, what's going to end up happening, Skip? And like you said, he doesn't want Dak to know, but Dak is feeling some kind of way because he hears this. He knows his owner really never supported him fully. He knows in the back of his mind his owner wanted Tony Romo to be the starting quarterback. But he played so well, he held his owner's hands. He had his owner's hand tied.
He did.
And Stephen Jones talked to him. But Stephen Jones can't talk to him anymore because he's going to say, Stephen, I told you.
And by the way, Stephen was asked by those same reporters yesterday, and for once, he just threw up his hands and says, nope, you're asking the wrong guy. That's Jerry's business. So he wouldn't even answer the Romo question.
Right.
So he knows the buck stops there. Usually on other bucks, they can stop on Stephen's desk, not this buck.
And because Stephen was probably sitting at the table and saying, Dad, we can't do this.
Can't do this. I agree. I agree.
I understand he's a rookie, but look how he's playing. He's doing things we've never seen before. And we've seen some great rookies. Oh, let's just say over the last 5 years, we've seen Cam, we've seen Andrew, we've seen Russell Wilson, RG3. This guy is comparable in his rookie season, if not better than all those guys.
He was.
So, Dad, we can't do this. And he says, okay, Stephen, I'm going to listen to you. But, you know, my other son is, he's on the bench, and I don't like my other son being.
That is a fact.
So now, when Stephen Jones tries to sit down at the table and say, well, Dad, he's like, nope, Stephen, I listened to you last time. I should have listened to my gut that told me to go ahead and reinsert Tony into the starting lineup. So now Stephen really, he can't talk to him like he could because he lost. At least if he'd have won one game, maybe he could have held him off. But you got to understand, Jerry, Aaron Rodgers played the first 2 games, he played historically great. And if you think Tony Romo could have outgunned him, you're sadly mistaken because I believe Tony Romo would have put the ball in harm's way more than Dak Prescott actually did. So now, instead of being a 3-point ball game, there's easily a chance that could have been a 10, 13, 17-point loss for you. Loss is a loss. But Jerry, it's in his mind, it's in his head, Skip, that Tony Romo can get the job done.
So as much as I hear all your conventional wisdom about why you should trade Tony Romo, and I'm completely with you, you need help everywhere across the defense. Their best pass rusher, I put quotes around this last year, DeMarcus Lawrence, they announced yesterday, he needs another back surgery. Really? What are you going to do? Who's going to rush the passer?
Who gets healthier as you continuously go into the back? Remember, Tony Romo had those. Now, mind you, he is a young man. So he's not about to be 37. He's in his early 20s. So he stands a greater chance of coming back healthier than, say, Tony Romo. But just think about what you could add. If you got Tony Romo's salary off your books, you could go get you a bona fide pass rusher. JPP might be available.
He might be.
Because he said, hey, I'm the baddest seven-finger man in the NFL. Can't nobody rush the quarterback
you're right.
With 7 fingers like I can.
You get rid of Romo, sky's the limit on restocking, reloading the defense. But also, look.
That balloon payment is going to come due in 3 years.
I think you're starting to hear me, though, that what a sweet deal for Jerry Jones to be able to start Tony Romo next year, fit him perfectly under the cap. And Jerry knows full well that he's fragile, that he's made of glass, that he could go anytime. Well, what better scenario? You've still got Dak Prescott waiting in the wings, right? And if Tony stays healthy, maybe you go win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't see that.
I'm not banking on Tony staying healthy because I have not seen him play in almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So it'll be almost 3 seasons, Skip.
Yeah.
Because out of a possible 32 starts,
I'm with you.
he's missed 28 of those. So it'll be almost 3 years since the last 3 football seasons since we've last seen Tony Romo in meaningful football games.
Yep.
Those little 6 snaps, we know he can throw the football. We know he can play. Do we know if he can still take a hit?
No.
Because the last 2 times we've seen him take a hit, once against Seattle, he missed the first 9 weeks of the season, never got his job back. We saw him on what was that, Thanksgiving Day against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
1 hit, he was done for the year.
And these look like routine hits to me. They weren't even like lethal blows,
So
quote
the
unquote,
last 3 hits that he's taken
Yeah,
has put him out
That's it.
for a substantial amount
that's
of time.
correct.
3 hits. So he's 3 for 3.